I thought before I even formally introduce you to Donna, I found a video that I think will start us out with an idea of how diverse her interests are. And let's look at it before we even get down to the story. So if we could.
At the Urban Zen Foundation, we design forums, partner with existing organizations, and bring together experts to find solutions and implement change in the areas of preservation of culture, well-being, and empowering children. And we have proven what we have always believed: they are all interrelated. For our preservation of culture, we want to show how each and every one of us can get involved and help preserve cultures from around the world. We believe through supporting all the artisans, we can create a sustainable model for each and every one of the cultures. We've demonstrated it with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the work that he's done in Noble Inca, with the artisan work that Russell James has done with the Aborigines in Australia, and with the Haitian people and the product that's being developed to help and rebuild Haiti.
The video keeps going, but we're going to stop with that, and I want to introduce you to not only a fashion icon, but the winner of the Clinton Global Citizen Award, Donna Karan. And Donna, before we talk about what you're really focused on now, which is urban Zen, I really think that the topic and the theme of departure is appropriate when we talk about your life. Going back to an early moment, which I'd like to start with, and I want to just frame that moment, and that is you're on the hospital table giving birth to your daughter, and at the same time, your boss, the iconic Anne Klein, is on her deathbed. So death and birth at the same time. Would you talk about that?
Yeah, that's the story of my life, birth and death. And I think it's the story of all of our lives in one form or another. I was ready to have my first baby, Gabrielle, who is now, well, we can forget that. And she was being born, and I was planning on staying home and being a mom, like all of us want to do. And unfortunately, my boss at that time, Anne Klein, was sick. And in those days, the word cancer was not even discussed. It was a hidden, dark story. And she had cancer, and I had no idea how really sick she was. So there I was giving birth, and my boss, Anne Klein, was in the hospital having cancer, and I'm delivering a child. And I have a collection due the next day. So, of course, they call me up and say, Donna, when are you coming back to work? And I said, would you like to know whether I had a boy or a girl? I had a girl, and her name is Gabby, after my father, who passed away when I was 3 years old. So I'm used to this routine, unfortunately.
You're an assistant designer, and the name on the label is not available, and you have to step in and finish the job.
So as everybody's arriving and bringing in all the clothes and all that, I get a call that my boss died, and a collection was due the next day. I was in a state of shock. I just delivered a child, my boss has died, and I have a collection due, and I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit more than anybody can take. I'm 24 years old, and it's a little out of my control. So I immediately ran out of the house to go to the city to see what was going on. And certainly my boss passed, and I was mortified, and I then had to do a collection the next day and have a show.
And the collection and the show worked out
so that was a
well.
pre-fall collection. And then this is one of the things that I think in my entire life I do not understand: pre-fall and fall. 2 collections a season are ridiculous. For anybody who's a designer out there, you'll understand what I mean. We're doing too many clothes. Anyway, so I had to go back and do a fall collection, and I guess the rest is history.
So
sort of.
let's jump to the next part of the history, which interestingly to me also was almost a death of sorts and a birth of sorts, and that is when you left Anne Klein and you therefore birthed
Donna Karan. I'm so
Donna Karan.
sorry.
New
Okay,
York.
so I had Anne Klein, and I did Anne Klein 2, which was a subversion of Anne Klein. And actually, I designed Anne Klein longer than Anne Klein, which is kind of weird. But I had this idea that I needed a bunch of clothes for myself. I'm a very selfish person, so I just really want to know everybody about that I designed for me. If other people like it, that's great. But I needed clothes, and I had no time to go out and shop. So I wanted to do a group of clothes for me and my friends, and I've been practicing yoga since I'm 18 years old.
And without dating you, at the time, practicing yoga at 18 was not a common occurrence.
No. People used to think, oh, there she goes on a woo-woo trip. But I was a yoga person, and I always wore my bodysuit and a wrap and tie skirt and a jacket, and that was it. And I said, I want to do 7 easy pieces, really simple collection. So I say to my boss at Anne Klein, I have this idea, and I want to do this little collection for me and my friends. He said, Donna, you couldn't do anything small if you wanted to. I thought that was rather rude. They fired me. So he says, listen, you could be fired, or you can start your own business, and we'll support it. So that's what I did. I started Donna Karan, and, because I had Anne Klein too, and I really wanted a little business.
And why the New York suffix on Donna Karan?
What does Donna Karan mean? It has no meaning. I think New York is more important than me. So I saw this shoebox, and it said Mordrizon, Paris, London. So I called the guy who was doing all my logos, and I said, listen, what do you think about Donna Karan, New York? He said, that's the stupidest idea I ever heard. I said, yeah? He says, why New York? What are people in Chicago going to do? L.A. I said, excuse me, pardon, Chicago. New York sort of is a encapsulation of the world. So we do Donna Karan, New York, and then, of course, DKNY.
You coined the concept of socially responsible fashion. Talk about that, if you would, about how that became part for you of the ethic of fashion.
Well, in the industry, as we all know, the AIDS epidemic broke out, and it was really an atrocity. I was losing my friends right and left. And in those days, as we didn't discuss cancer, we didn't discuss AIDS. So, I was with a friend of mine, Perry Ellis, who was a brilliant designer, and he had AIDS. And I said, Perry, what's the matter? He says, do you believe I'm allergic to cucumbers? And it was that unfortunate, no understanding of what was going on. And I said, well, how do I really get out to the consumer? I can dress them, they love clothes, and address them. So I called an event called 7th on Sale, and I brought together all the designers, Anna Winter, the retailers, everybody came together. And we all emptied our design rooms. I said, there's so much stuff around here, might as well sell it. And we had a 3-day sale on clothing, and it was an amazing, amazing experience of my life. And I wanted to believe at that point that I could no longer just dress people, I had to address the issues at hand. So after 7th on Sale and bringing the AIDS epidemic out to where it is, then my girlfriend Liz Taveras had ovarian cancer. And I said, well, nobody knew about ovarian cancer. It wasn't even discussed. So I live in the Hamptons, and in the back of Liz's thing, we emptied out our closets, and we started making some money. And today, now in the Hamptons, Super Saturday is probably the hottest ticket in town. In the Hamptons, so that's kind of...
And raises millions of dollars in an afternoon.
For ovarian cancer. But it became very apparent to me that it wasn't about a disease. It wasn't about, breast cancer, lung cancer, this. And I just found out the other day from my girlfriend Barbara that heart disease is the #1 killer of women today. I mean, it's just shocking that, all these diseases are around and all the cures are around. But as I look around this room, every single one of us is a patient. Nobody gets away with it. Every one of us is a loved one. And I realized that I needed to do something on a much larger level.
Before we get to Urban Zen, I want to touch a little bit more on 2 things. The first is creativity, because you're an artist. And I'm curious, you and I talked about nature and how your eyes see things differently maybe than mine or others do. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's a great, if you, any of you, I can sit here and talk for days about this. There's an amazing video that just went up on Citizen Brooklyn, and I didn't even know I was doing it. But people would say, where do you get your inspiration from? And to me, it's everywhere. I'm looking at that purple light right now, and I'm going, how's that color? I don't know. Maybe the blue is a little bit too blue, or beige, or wherever, and the shade of your gray. I mean, as an artist, your eyes are constantly going. And nature, for me, has always been an inspiration. The color of the skies, the colors of the water, the sunrise, the sunset. And I'm sitting here wearing these bracelets from Haiti. I never take them off. I love them. So, people go to Haiti and they go, oh my God, you're going to Haiti. And I go, oh my God, I'm going to Haiti. Everybody there is an artist. And it blew me away. So
let's stick with that. So Haiti has become, you didn't know anything about Haiti at all. And a friend of yours invites you there, and it has now become a central part of your life. Why Haiti?
Well, when the Haiti earthquake happened, I didn't even know Haiti even existed. The person who was running the Urban Zen Center is Haitian, and she says, Donna, you've got to do something. There's not even a discussion. I go, okay. So in my brain, the way I think is I think Bali, Haiti. And people go, Bali, Haiti? To me, Bali is the perfect example of preservation of culture in a holistic way. Because a friend of mine, I go to Bali a lot, and it's a huge inspiration for me. And the whole bamboo school and what John Hardy has created there, and being able to create a village, being able to create product that is world renowned of quality from artisans. I go to Bali all the time. I do a whole furniture collection there. The culture is preserved. The place is touristic. It's magnificent. It's unique. So I said, here is a devastated country called Haiti. They have no trees, no forestation. Bamboo. Bring down the bamboo. Start a school. Everybody in Haiti is an artist. Every single person. Instead of giving people money, give them jobs. So my whole premise of this is being able to help support creativity and give them jobs that could be created. So now I'm about to open a school there on vocational education, and I'm going there tomorrow.
And your efforts, and you're there often.
Well, it's a little bit more than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, to me, what you're doing is creating or helping build the culture along with the country. And you're connecting the dots. Which I think is a core of who you are as a person, connecting dots that might not seem connectable.
That I would say is true. People say to me, what does this all make? Mind, body, spirit, healthcare, education, culture. Donna, if you're going to do this, you can't do healthcare, education, and culture. I said, I can't separate it. How can you say, I'm going to change the healthcare system, but I'm not getting into education? I call it past, present, and future. The past has the wisdom. In our culture right now, there is wisdom in our past. I know last year you had Deepak here, dear friend of mine. Somebody I've done yoga with, I've meditated. All these tools should be about like brushing your teeth and drinking water. It's not some sort of woo-woo thing out there. So my whole thing is derive the wisdom that we have in the past. Bring it into the present, which is healthcare. Move it into the future, which is our education. Our kids are on speed right now. I mean, we all know that. I don't think they breathe. I mean, just take a breath and see what happens.
So finding inspiration for you in past, present, future is the sort of subtext of the tragic death of your husband and the love of your life. And therefore the birth of your activism.
Well, Stephen was an artist. He was a sculptor, an artist. He was my partner in crime. He started Donna Karan with me, and he used to put dots on a piece of paper. And through those dots, he connected it. His sculptures, his art was phenomenal. Now, a lot of people haven't seen it, but maybe they have. He's never showed his art. And he said, Donna, two of us out there is too much. I can understand it too. You're enough to deal with much us, the art world and the fashion world. And I say no more. It's like we'd never see each other. So he most beautifully had a studio, and he did all his artwork. His art is amazing. I've just come out with a book on him called Connecting the Dots, because what he did, put dots on a piece of paper. So he did bronzes, lucite, he did all my fragrance bottles. He created the fragrance bottles. He created the fragrance. I had nothing to do with it. I mean, my husband told me, Donna, you have to be in the fragrance business. And I go, why? And he says, because you have to, and that's the way you're going to do it. So he made my bottles. He made the fragrance every night. And he was an artist. He was a sculptor. He was the love of my life and my partner in business. And unfortunately, he passed away to lung cancer. And I had the tools that was needed. And it wasn't out there for every single person. It was unacceptable to me.
The experience of being with him during the sickness, you then said, I see what's needed and it doesn't exist, so I'm gonna create it.
You don't need to create what's already been created. You go along with what's been created. But I went out there as a philanthropist and I said, okay, who's doing this out there in the philanthropic world? And I found nobody. One organization, Bravewell, and they were teaching doctors. But what I found is there's a missing element in the healthcare system. There's nobody taking care of the patient, the doctor, the nurse, and the loved one. We all take care of your disease, but nobody's looking at you wholly. So while you're in the hospital, we created this person who works with the patient, the doctor, the nurse, and the loved one. We found we saved $999,000 on one floor of a hospital.
Wow.
Now multiply that in the healthcare system.
And you're talking about,
huge.
And it's about bringing different disciplines and meditation and music we talked about and scent and smell all to the
hospitals, but not only the hospital. Think of most people in the hospitals today, half the time you're out of the hospital. So you think of chemo, you think of all the things that you're dealing with in your body, and all of a sudden that word comes out, you've got. Your brain explodes, your family explodes. What is that thing? The two things missing in medical system today is patient navigation and patient care, because everybody's a specialist in the healthcare system.
Patients not the focus.
The loved one's not being handled. Even the doctor and the nurses are burnt out.
Do you think that your fashion experience is what led you to say, this is something that I see that's wrong and I'm going to try to fix it? What sensibility, what responsibility that led to you taking action?
Some very crazy woman. But it was I think I go with Calvin's fragrance called obsession. If I see a problem, I see a solution. I don't need to design another thing that I've designed before. When I started Stretch in clothes, Stretch didn't exist. When I put Men in Black, it was like, oh my God, what is she doing now? It's like, I think on any creative level, you don't need to do what's already been done. You see, you feel the empty void, and you go and do it. And now I'm a very big proponent of, that I don't believe everything should be me, 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 me. I believe what is drastically missing right now is the collaboration. That if you think about what is missing, in the whole foundational movement right now, healthcare is a problem, education is a problem. How many foundations are out there? I believe in the coming together of all these organizations to change the healthcare system, to change our educational system. Because I, like everybody else, get called, okay, I need money for this, I need money for that, I need money for this. And, we got a philanthropic problem.
I agree with that. Not enough connectivity, which is part of the ethos of Chicago Ideas Week. And beyond that, the theme of departure is really consistent in your life. Let's talk about looking back and looking ahead both. Somebody in the audience is thinking, a student is thinking about fashion in 2013. What do you say to them? The fashion business.
I don't think you want to be a designer. You are or you're not. I did not want to be a designer. It is the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be home and be a mom. So it's something inside of you because nobody realizes. It's like any professional business. You are working 24/7. You know, I have 2 fall collections coming up. I just had spring and summer. I did 4 shows. I have Urban Zen. I've got to be in Haiti. I mean, it's like, whoa. You know, it's intense, and this one wants you here, and this one wants you there, and it's like, I've got to do my fabric before I even ship the season. And why would you want to do a fashion show, you know, and deliver clothes in the wrong season? I mean, it's wild out there.
In other words,
it's like,
you're doing
what's new? What's new? Who's wearing that? Oh my God, she wore it already. I can't wear it. I'm not trying to paint a dark picture of fashion. You have to have it so inside your DNA. You have to eat it, sleep it, breathe it, drink it. It is not a party circuit.
We could go on and on and on. Your life is a life rich with story, a life rich with meaning, and a life rich with purpose. And I thank you sincerely for joining us on the Edison Talk stage.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.